This is your Not So Critical update for Friday, September 10th. Today, Apple delays looking at our boring gallery. GDPR kicks into high gear. And trouble with your job search? Blame the AI. Now your hosts, Mikey Sutton, Lowe, and J.Co. Hizzle.
The risk of a show like this is we always start talking before we record, and that's when all the best stuff happens. We'll try
of course.
Recap it. When I do interviews, I try not to talk to the guest before the interview because invariably they'll start like spilling their guts. I'm like, we got to save this. This can't go back.
This is good content. Yeah,
we'll never recapture these moments, but that's what we're here for. So this is our second week with Jon, who is going to be a regular here on the show with us. Welcome, Jon.
Thank you. That's great.
J.Co. Hizzle, as some people like to call him.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Some people
I've heard
Peter.
that for sure.
Yeah. So we got Mike Sutton, J.Co. Hizzle, and I haven't come up with a rapper name for me yet. I think
Lowe.
Pilo. Yeah. Okay.
Pilo is pretty good. Yeah.
Pilo, J.Co. Hizzle, and Mike Sutton. Yeah. In
Mikey Sutton, I think we got to go.
Mikey Sutton. Oh God, yeah. Sorry,
Mikey for sure.
Yeah. Well, moving on.
Should we talk about tech or privacy or
whatever
other depressing topics we can come up with? We just talked about this. I think we're Jon is going to introduce our first article. Do I have that correctly?
Yeah. Pretty funny because it was kind of like, of course they did, but Apple has delayed the child protection measures that they wanted to implement on our iPhones and iCloud. Thankfully, they listened to researchers, advocates, and they decided to probably take some time, look inward, and reinvent or maybe re-implement implement a different solution for this terrible problem. Speaking of what you said, we're going to talk about depressing news. This doesn't get any more depressing. Like it is the worst subject, but it is an important one, I think, that we need to touch on.
Yeah. It's funny because there's a lot of people I know online who I quite surprised that they were against Apple's move to scan images on the client on the device, but they were because it's the wrong thing to do. The problem with Apple's announcement though is that they're only delaying things.
Correct.
Which most people are saying, well, they're just going to wait until people forget about it and then do it anyway.
Yeah. This again falls in that category of, we talked about it at the time of the announcement, and now unsurprisingly it's being delayed. So once again, we have to come back on a story and say, well, since we talked about it, things changed. It's almost like a breach in that way. So Peter, to what you just said about the scanning though, I thought part of the issue was that they weren't scanning it on the phone. They were scanning it once it was uploaded to Google Cloud, and that was how they kind of got around the idea of, or do I have that wrong? Because that was actually one of the notes I made about this article and I don't know if this was like a quote from Apple, but in the article they say that the software powering Apple mobile devices to match abusive photos on the user's phone against a database of known images. And so that was one of the things I wanted to clarify.
You got it wrong the other way around. I know where the confusion comes from. It's because they can't do it on iCloud data because iCloud data is encrypted, but they can do it on the client. And then what happens is that if it gets flagged on the client, then Apple will do a manual review of all the images on the device.
Right. Which was one of the issues, because if it's identified, it has to be reported directly to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, not referred to another human being to look at it and decide what to do with it, if in fact it is CSAM.
Yes.
So a question I have that you kind of sprung it on me here is that you said they will scan it on the device and then send off the gallery or the probably the entire contents of the phone off to be reviewed. So that tells me that Apple has
By
a way
human.
to do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like
and
if you think about it, like Apple has a way to take your images off your phone. And we used that poster, I think it was last week, where they were like, what stays on your phone or what is on your phone stays on your phone, whatever it was. So that is a total, not only like a contradiction to this, but to the whole iOS, Mac OS being the most secure operating system.
Yeah.
And it shatters that glass wall.
Part of the problem is that once that mechanism exists and that whole process exists, and it may be for the most noble purpose initially, some countries are going to want it for different reasons. Some legal systems are going to want to start implementing it for different kinds of terrorism, hate. Maybe some place will be anti-LGBT, or I don't know. I don't know what Afghanistan would want it for right now, but it's once you open that Pandora's box of making it possible, and that's why so many. Well, it's one of the reasons why so many people are so upset about it.
Which, that's the focus of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Was the outrage over it? There had at the time not been any announcement on delay. Now we're getting the delay announcement. And I said in chat the other day, I keep waiting for a similar announcement about Australia's privacy laws that they passed not too long ago, but I haven't seen it yet. So hopefully something like that is coming there too. I don't know.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Okay, so I said that it's only been delayed, and that's true, and it's possible that it might just happen anyway. But it is very unusual for Apple to respond at all to public pressure. Usually, they just go ahead and do what they want, regardless of however many number of people say that it's the wrong idea.
So what? Why now?
I think it's just the volume and the number of people, and ultimately because it is actually wrong. Maybe I think. So they said that they're going to engage with like civil society people and from civil rights groups and privacy advocates and things like that. So they're actually going to be talking to the right people this time, which is what they should have done the first time around. But hey, got there in the end.
And we've also talked a couple times about the issues with the machine learning or AI that actually does the analysis. I know shot callers come up several times, but in those cases, it's more a scenario where a human is tampering with the evidence to make it look the way we want. But we also had talked about how, particularly with respect to child sexual abuse materials, there are techniques to kind of obscure the images, alter the images in some way that makes them less detectable by the machine learning.
Yeah, which I think neatly leads us into the next story.
Right. Yeah, I mean, not necessarily a separate story, although I could have taken advantage of that very smooth segue. But this article just talks about how the idea of adversarial attacks and tricking machine learning algorithms into, I guess, misinterpreting images. So one of the examples that they use is they'll show a picture of a dog and look at the different confidence levels. So the algorithm is 90% sure that it's a dog and only 5% sure that it's a cat. So it concludes that it's a dog. And then they'll manipulate the image in a way that humans can't actually see, but tricks the algorithm into decreasing its confidence in the thing that it actually is and increasing its confidence in anything else to create a situation where the algorithm becomes less effective at identifying those things. And I just bring it up. It's an interesting story to look at machine learning, but in the case of trying to identify images, especially with something as high risk as this, it's another opportunity for error.
Yeah.
So you could say, well, that's why they have the human reviews. It's just a mess, though.
That reminds me. Sorry, Peter.
Okay.
That reminds me of we are system designers, software engineers. They sometimes you create an app or a system or a program that has certain features that become exploited or abused in a funny or really bad way. One that reminds me is I just read recently, there's a game called Team Fortress 2 where I think it
I've
was Team
heard of that.
Fortress, yeah, where images were being able to be sent through the Team Fortress client. I'm going off memory here, but basically it was what people were doing, what bad people were doing was they were sending terrible images over Team Fortress, and this was being stored in a folder that was meant to be temporary in a temp folder, but it ended up just staying on the device, which
Oh,
is really bad if we think about it,
yeah.
because if you are caught storing any type of that, terrible imagery on your phone or computer, you could get in a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah,
So
it's classed as production because you're retransmitting it usually.
exactly.
So, yeah, interpretation of the law will get you done for distribution of child pornography.
Right.
Well, I mean, if it is.
If
that.
it is, but that was
Yeah.
the example they used was using child pornography and sending it to random people on this game who I don't think they were I don't think that anything bad happened to the random victims, but still it is just an example of how systems like the one Apple has designed could potentially be manipulated or exploited in weird out of the box ways.
Yeah, basically, if you can hack a device and store an image on it, which shouldn't be on there, you can get someone in trouble. And this, I don't know if you guys heard about this Turkish journalist who got arrested like 10 years ago. And it was because of, he got hacked by some, gang, and they put some stuff on his laptop, I think it was, and then reported him, and he got arrested for it. And I think there's some more details come to light this week. I didn't actually bring it out because, well, we have enough stories to talk about already, but it's kind of interesting, and it's exactly this kind of situation which could happen with an iPhone, and every iPhone has that kind of backdoor vulnerabilities on it, which is just proven by the kind of the ways that you can root an iPhone device or Mac devices or whatever, iOS device rather.
Right.
So those kind of things are going to exist, and then people are going to get in trouble, and yeah, it's all a big mess.
It is. Another story or I guess event that I was reminded of is the Microsoft AI Twitter bot called Tay.
Oh yeah.
Who 4chan said, let's see what we can do, basically, and they sent their army of 4chaners.
Sorry, why is it always 4chan? Why does I could just fuck everything?
But do they? I think I'm pretty sure they voted. Wasn't it them that voted for Bodie McBoatface?
Bodie McBoatface, yeah.
So some of the things that is done isn't so terrible, but I think from their terrible actions of turning this AI Twitter bot Tay into an anti-Semite, showed us exactly what we're looking at. Showed us what we're looking at now, which is these systems that use mostly automated or machine learning methods can be exploited in really funky ways.
Yeah.
Just like what Mike just showed us, where you can alter an image over and over again to the point where it looks like something that it isn't, and that's just surface level.
In that case of Tay, Microsoft's brilliant idea was to create this bot and then just turn it loose on Twitter to be trained by Twitter.
Right.
Which
exactly right.
Goes to my argument, I guess, if people can do something, they will do it. So
yeah,
don't trust the world. Sure. It's just a terrible place full of terrible people. So
yeah. Oh, that's what it was.
Well,
anti-Semite. She was an anti-Semite and Holocaust denier. It just came back to me. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Terrible. Just terrible, but obscenely just absurd in a almost a funny way. That people would do this.
All right.
Well, we didn't take long to get to the everyone's an asshole point of the show, did we?
Off the bat.
Thank you for watching, guys.
You want some good news, Peter?
Go on, yeah, let's go for it. One. Well, this is kind of good news. So this is an article about WhatsApp who got fined 267 million euros, I think, something like that, which is kind of peanuts for WhatsApp, you know, but it is signs that Europe's privacy regime, as they call it on Politico, is coming alive a bit. It's kind of picking up pace. They've got a couple of other examples in there. I think there was one from Facebook. I forget who exactly, but another like 400 million euro fine. The general point is that stuff has started to happen. It's really taken a while to get going though, because the fines have been so like, you know, token up until lately. These fines can like a GDPR offense can be 4% of the total revenue of a company, which I'm really looking forward to seeing the first 4% fine be handed out. It's gonna happen sometime, right?
Well,
but can you imagine
especially to a conglomerate like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram, this that are all under that umbrella. Or
yeah, and they're all the worst offenders as well.
Right.
They're all the ones that are really taking the piss. So I don't know, Mike. What do you reckon?
Well, so part of it is just timing, right? I used to work with an IT consultant that specialized in HIPAA compliance. And when this kind of sweeping legislation is passed, it takes a long time for implementation to come into effect. So this, I think, with GDPR was passed in April of 2016, didn't come into effect until 2018. Now we're starting to see some enforcement. Like you said, there were some smaller fines, but kind of the one of the things that they mentioned in the article is that it's facing some legislative challenges. And so, you know, which is, this is the first time these cases are being seen in court. So a lot of those, how do we interpret the law? How do we apply it? What does it mean? All those questions are only being answered for the first time. And I mean, maybe it's even fast if it only took since enforcement 3 years, since it passed 5 years to start seeing now this year 2 big fines. I don't know if I'd call that slow. Certainly for the privacy advocates, it's longer than they'd like for it to have, but it's coming out.
Well, my point earlier last time when we talked about this was that there were just all these clear violations just lined up, ready to be kind of looked at by the data protection agencies. And the reason it was frustrating was because, you know, law comes into effect, nothing happens, you know, literally nothing for 6 months. There was no fine handed out for 6 months, I think. And it's very frustrating for people who've been banging on about this. And, you know, 2016, we hear about this great new thing going to be happening, the general data protection regulations. And everyone's like, yeah, great. Okay, another couple of years. That's all we need. And then finally, it's legal. And then, yeah, great. So now I'll sue this person and find them, and nothing happens for another 3 years, kind of thing. So yeah, but I think you're right. By actual legal standards, it is probably not slow at all.
Yeah, I think you're underestimating just how slow bureaucracy can move.
Yeah, I probably am.
There was no infrastructure to do this stuff. So maybe not too bad.
There's one other little thought I had on this, which is that the GDPR actually covers tons more stuff, which really hasn't been addressed by anybody. There's stuff like the right to, you know, subject access requests and right to be deleted and things like that. Like a lot of people have got the cookie consent stuff kind of figured out, but you ask to be deleted on a company, and good luck with that.
Right. Especially for smaller companies, it's tough to get that stuff in place. Well, I don't know.
Well, it's difficult. It's difficult to map that data, and you know, the larger, I think, not small or big. I think just the more streams that you're outflowing data to, that you have, I should say, the more difficult it's going to be to plug those holes. And you mentioned HIPAA, Mike. I didn't know you actually worked with HIPAA. I've also worked with HIPAA, and one thing that they do is there is a name and shame board for HIPAA.
What?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
It's actually, I'm pretty sure it's government run, and they'll really
list
interesting.
The fines, they'll list the date of it. It's
the name, obviously, of the company, what the I think what the what's the word I'm looking for here?
Violation.
What type of
violation?
Thank you. What type of violation it was, and
I don't know why that's popped into
yeah, it clicked. Yeah.
So you could go search for a healthcare provider to see if they've had a HIPAA violation or have been fined.
And this isn't only healthcare providers. It's also business associates of that, like an MSP, like a managed service provider, or whatever that is tied into this. Did they mishandle this data? It is very interesting. And
is that a government? The government itself is publishing
I believe
it
is government run
Wow.
and maintained. It is obviously to deter you because you kind of get blacklisted in the healthcare communities. If you can't maintain HIPAA, then why should anyone use you? And I forget how far it goes if you have to shut down, depending on how crazy of a violation it is. But I do know that what Mike said is true. They do list various interesting facts about these violators. Maybe we should do like a end of show, talk about the name and shamers, the latest
yeah. I quite like that idea. There's actually a website called GDPRhub.eu, which has a section on it. It's basically a wiki, and it has a section on it which has all the decisions made in the EU by all the different data protection agencies and the fines that are handed out. Mostly it's fines, because mostly they are privacy violations. Occasionally, I think they're like, oh no, actually, we just kind of, it's not really. But yeah, 90% of them are actual fines. So it's a wiki though, so it's not great. It's not really well laid out and easy. I like the name and shame board. That's good. The Hall of Shame. Yeah.
I think HIPAA is a bit more linear compared to GDPR. When you look at the scope of becoming GDPR compliant, it is insane what you have to accomplish. And from my research on GDPR, what I quickly was told and realized is that you just need to try. That's kind of like the argument.
I mean, HIPAA's kind of the same way. The list of requirements is gigantic, and there's no certification. You can't say I am compliant. All you can hope is that you've done enough to not commit a violation.
Yeah. Wow. Unless you get audited, and then they're like,
I'm learning so much today, dude. About wow. Okay.
One other comment I wanted to make about the original article talking about the trouble with the litigation is I don't know if jurisdiction is the right word, but part of what came out is that the original fine in this case was recommended to be about $60 million, a little under $60 million US. But the European Data Protection Board, the EDPB, pushed for the $266 million, so there's a question over who has the ability to issue these fines and what's the process for determining how much. And that, again, one of the things that's going to be litigated because it just hasn't been an issue before. Now that these big fines are finally coming out, obviously their companies are going to argue, well, wait a minute, you told us 50 million. Now all of a sudden it's 280 million. What's up? So we'll see. We'll start to hear all these arguments and just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I'm popcorn at the ready.
We had a related article about WhatsApp too. Who's that?
This is pretty breaking news, honestly, but this has been suspected for a very long time. WhatsApp claimed for a long time they were end-to-end encrypted. Many companies and messaging applications claim that they're end-to-end encrypted. But the truth is that it's more like end to decrypt to re-encrypt encrypted. So what we were looking at here is that Facebook reads and shares your WhatsApp messages. I'm a WhatsApp user.
Okay.
And this is specifically to do with reported, what happens when a message is reported, right?
But there's been other reports. Not meant to use report in that sense, but yeah, go ahead, Peter. I can see you bursting.
Oh no! I really just wanted to get in there before Mike says, yeah, but shouldn't everybody expect their messages to be read? It's WhatsApp, it's Facebook. Of course, they get messages going to be read. Like, because I just know that's what he's going to say.
Well, so not to spoil a future article, but maybe I'll just bring it up. One of the issues that we came up, another article on the rundown was about ProtonMail, which I know you were going to talk about, Peter.
Yeah.
But the issue here is, so just to kind of set this up kind of quickly, they have promoted themselves as a secure email service. And from the article, ProtonMail rose up to become the advertised email service of choice for privacy-minded users, especially those with secrets to keep. And while ProtonMail advertised privacy and security against such actions, it was apparently forced to cave into such legal demands. So I jumped ahead to that because I think there's a distinction. If a service like ProtonMail or like WhatsApp says they're encrypted, then as a user, you should have some expectation that that's actually the case. If they don't say it, then yeah, assume that everybody's watching you. But I guess even in those cases, I mean, I still would assume that there's an NSA backdoor and somebody can see it, even if it is encrypted.
So going back to the WhatsApp thing or the NCR encrypted thing, right? I just want to make one comment, which is there's a fabulous woman called Mallory Nodal. She's the director of the CDT, the Center for Democracy and Technology in the US, and she has, her Twitter stream is full of her saying, we need to define what end-to-end encryption means. We need to define what end-to-end encryption means. It's really important to define what this actually means. Everybody has a different, she keeps on repeating herself. And it's a bit annoying when I'm trying to just, read about cats or whatever, but she's so right. It's really important to have a definition of what it means so that when you see E2E, you know that it's either possible or not possible, or they can or they can't read your messages. So in this case, it turns out that they have been. With ProtonMail, they basically straight up lied on their description of the description of themselves. Let's come back to that in a second. But
yeah. So again, just for context in the article here.
Sorry.
So this came up in the context of Facebook had said, we're not getting this information. Nobody's seeing it. But they found that if you report a message, if a user reports a message, that there's a crew of 1,000 moderators, contractors, who will go through these reports and analyze them. And from the article, they say, aside from messages, the workers can see other unencrypted information, such as names and profile images of users' WhatsApp groups, as well as their phone number, profile photo, status message, phone battery level, language, and any related Facebook and Instagram accounts. And with respect to the contractors, Facebook acknowledged that these contractors spent their days sifting through content that WhatsApp users and the service's own algorithms flagged. And this is where I feel like I kind of roll my eyes a little bit, because it says they often include everything from fraud and child porn to potential terrorist plottings. I thought, if ever you want to explain away an invasion of privacy, just say child porn and terrorism, and it's a free pass.
It's the classic phrase, won't somebody please think of the children? I mean, that's like an internet meme, isn't it? And what gets me about this is there must be so many messages to go through. WhatsApp has got so many people in it, so they're going to have to employ an army of moderators and reviewers who are not going to be super well trained or highly paid, experts in how to analyze what's the terrorist, who's the terrorist, is this terrorist content or not? I had my 12-hour
what's the
induction.
safeguard, because it says only reported content. So that report button is the only thing that's stopping someone from viewing messages. And to me, that doesn't sound, I don't know. I feel like that can very quickly be abused. And where does it stop? Are they able to see my entire message history? These are things that are left vague. And
going back to the AI thing. So it also said the AI flag stuff, right? So I bet you somebody somewhere has figured out how to trigger the AI on certain keywords or certain so they'll be trolling some friend of theirs by just sending them a message saying, hey, the crow what do crows do? They caw. Yes. The crow caws at midnight. They'd be like, okay, right, big alert going on somewhere, and then someone's going to have to review that person's whole.
For sure.
And not to mention over and over again, we see stories of racial bias and just on people's names, on images over and over again. So that stuff is definitely happening.
Well, I think a distinction here, if we use, for example, something like Discord, great application, we're all on it. They came out and they said, yeah, we encrypt your data when you send it to us, decrypt it on our servers, and then re-encrypt it back to a different client. When you come out and you tell me these things, I'm not agreeing with it, but I'm also not very okay with it, but it makes it better because you're being honest with the user. That's all we want, is just honesty. And WhatsApp has been claiming, and Facebook has been claiming end-to-end encryption. And I know what end-to-end encryption is. In my head, I'm imagining a fairly straight line with no stops on the way, especially no data like data farms called Facebook, You
mean one end to the other end, right?
Yeah, that's pretty linear. Yeah, that's one line to the next.
And I'm totally on board with that, Peter. Yeah. If you don't tell me otherwise, I'll assume that it's plain text.
Right.
I mean, on a billboard in Fifth Avenue. But if you tell me specifically that it's encrypted, then I have an expectation that that's the case.
Exactly.
Yeah. And with the Proton, oh, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, it's fine. Please.
With the ProtonMail article, one of the things they said is when questioned about why they even, in the case of ProtonMail, why they possessed user IP addresses in the first place, they responded that they didn't log IP addresses by default, and it only started logging the specific user's IP addresses after it was legally forced to do so by Swiss authorities. That, again, from the article. So when that happened, did they tell anyone about that change?
Right.
Like,
well, they actually quietly, this is really funny. I wanted to bring this up because it ties into exactly what you just said. They quietly removed that we do not log IP addresses from their website.
Last time.
The warrant canary, essentially, but right.
So I'm not sure when this was removed, if it was removed after the story broke or before. Very scary stuff.
I think it was after the story broke, as far as I know, because there was a story on the Register which talked about this, and they said that after it happened, they removed it. Then when they got called on it, basically. Here's the thing. The email is never going to be secure, right? You send the subject line is always going to be unencrypted, and IP address that you're connecting from is there. Or, that's, you can encrypt the body of the text, but the metadata is basically, it's SMTP. So I think there's a huge difference between can't and don't. So if you're using something like Signal, they literally don't have any information about you, and there's no way that they can get it because it is end-to-end encryption. And it's the protocol has that built into it. So that's my point. Can't versus don't. Because the law, like, if you get, if the government comes to you or the police come to you and say you have to do this, they do. That's the law. And if they don't, then they'll get in trouble. So,
and this comes back to designing systems with privacy in mind, with security in mind. When Signal was designed, I believe it was written in a way, it was created in a way that they simply shrug and throw their hands up, that we can't edit anything for you. But clearly ProtonMail did not take that approach, and they were able to, for simplicity's sake, turn a switch on and say log IP.
It's email.
I feel like
it is email.
I probably shouldn't even bring this up because I don't remember the specific. Wasn't there a case like 10 or 15 years ago of a company that didn't keep this information, but then was forced to either start tracking it or shut down?
Lava Bit, I think it's called. Yes, they are an example of the warrant canary. They actually, we talked about this last week. The warrant canary is a piece of text which says we have never received any legal requests to disclose information, and because some legal requests you can't disclose the fact that you got them. A warrant canary is you remove that piece of text. So you don't actually actively tell people, but the fact that it's not there anymore means you have received one.
Right.
And LavaBit, I'm sure it's LavaBit. They did that, and some people noticed. And it was, I think it's one of the examples that I was thinking of when I said that the warrant canaries have been used in the wild. But yeah,
there should be
they
a
were an email service
clearinghouse,
and they shut down.
We need a clearinghouse of
is.
warrant canary sites, like a warrant canary watch.
Yeah.
And you could like have a dead canary rating system for companies.
Yeah. Some of them get added back as well, which is kind of interesting. There's been a couple of cases where they've disappeared and come back and they're like, oh no, it was a mistake, but people don't really know, do they?
Yeah, it seems like kind of a binary thing. Either you have or you haven't.
Oh, well, I found one. Yeah, there is something. There's a something called canarywatch.org, and they list a lot of big names here. We see ProtonMail, Reddit, Adobe, Tumblr, and the list just goes on and on.
Of people who took down their statements.
If I'm understanding this, yes.
Yeah, Reddit did. I'm pretty sure. I seem to remember that. All these big companies get them eventually. That's the thing. Because the bigger the social network, the more likely you are to have actual terrorists on there.
Yeah.
And then they're going to receive, the FBI find them and they get, or the NSA, whoever, and they'll send them one of those, what they're called, there's a letter or some sort. Anyway, the thing that can't be disclosed.
Is that the Pfizer warrants or is that something different?
The Pfizer warrants. It's like a national security letter. Or something
national security letters.
Yeah, I mean, it's the US thing.
I'll just agree with you to demonstrate that I know what you're talking about. yeah, that's definitely right, Peter. Nailed it.
Like when you two guys were talking about, like, what is it, NPI inputs and audio and
right.
For anybody who's watching, these two chat away on Discord, and they go on and on about, I used this and such an NPI, but then again with Nitro and HD video and 720p, of course, doesn't support that. Well, unless you're using the USB dingle dongle, and it's like, oh my god, is that like, what I sound like when I'm talking
streaming
to
snobs?
Yeah,
streaming
100%.
Snobs, yeah.
Now I know what it's like. Sorry,
Speaking of which, I gotta get a new camera. Yeah, it's definitely about time.
I can make a recommendation. Okay, let's look at what? Automated hiring software. So this article, automated hiring software is mistakenly rejecting millions of viable job candidates based on a study from Harvard that talks about how as the title says, the software is rejecting millions of viable candidates, creating this huge problem of what they call hidden workers. And from the article, they say the study's authors identify a number of factors blocking people from employment, but automated hiring software is one of the biggest. And these programs are used by 75% of US employers, rising to 99% of Fortune 500 companies. So let's start there, and then I'll give a couple examples of things that get you flagged mistakenly.
Can I just say that this reminds me of, I think it may be just an urban legend, but it's the story about the guy who worked at a place and they got so many applicants to the job that what he used to do was, this was back in the time when you used to get paper CVs, he would take all the CVs and he would throw them up in the air, and any that landed the address side down, he would throw away. And one of his colleagues asked him, why do you do that? Why do you just throw half of the applicants? There could be some really good people in there. And he's like, well, I only want the lucky ones. So,
yeah.
And the thing is, it's as good a way of filtering out applicants as any other way. If you've just got 100 people applying for one job.
And my wife showed me a listing today. I think it's Indeed. Will show you how many people applied for a job. And she showed me a listing that had like 2,300 applicants.
Yes.
There's no way a hiring manager is going to go through all those. Like how else are you going to do it?
LinkedIn has a similar feature.
And that's why this problem isn't going to get fixed anytime soon, because the people who are using this crappy AI, which is filtering out candidates, they still get candidates who are good enough to do the job. So,
yeah.
Well, here's a funny. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
But yeah, go on. Tell us some reasons why.
Okay. So some of the examples they share in the article is the system will automatically reject candidates with gaps of longer than 6 months in their employment history. So potentially could be a problem coming out of COVID here, lockdowns. Hospitals
Yeah.
who only hospitals who only accept candidates with experience in computer programming on their CV, when all they really need was to be able to enter patient information into a computer, and then rejecting applicants for a retail clerk position if they don't specifically list floor buffing as one of their skills.
That's good. Wow.
Wow. I
So
mean, wow.
we only want the lucky ones.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
Only the floor buffers, I guess,
Yeah.
bufferers.
Plus, you're
So when
applying for a retail clerk position, and you're going to
Yeah.
list your applicable skills to that level. Ooh.
I recently was on a job hunt. I am, as you guys know, but I did find a few good opportunities, and I chose one. But what I'm getting to is when I was on this hunt, I started researching. It's basically the equivalent to growth hacking for an individual, and there's a whole community around resume formatting with the best success rates, wording with the best success rates, passing through AIs or screening systems, and I tested it. I created a resume. I filled it out the way I'm supposed to. I used the one resume format with, I forget what success rates the person had, but it was absurd compared to his old resume that he handmade. And it just started piling in. Wow. It was insane. It was absolutely crazy what a difference it made.
I believe
and that's where we're at right now. It is sad because all of these viable candidates are being not even looked at because their resume has X or Y or doesn't have X or Y.
I was a hiring manager at another company, and I think I was trying to fill a customer service position. And after, so I think we were using Indeed. You could set exclusion rules. So we excluded anybody who was outside the geographic area we needed. We excluded anybody who didn't have whatever criteria. And I still got 650 resumes through their system. And I mean, to what you were just saying, John, like the first pass is just, does their resume visually look like it's laid out in a good way or not? Like there's what other criteria you're going to use? There's no way you can read 650 resumes and make any kind of a good decision based on anything other than superficial first impressions.
But the truth is, you will not review the 600, right? You said 650, like you will get to number 20 and you will be so sick of looking at the same exact thing. You will close that pool and decide from that 20. It is, and this is obviously not you targeting at you, Mike, specifically, but hiring managers in general don't have the time to sit there and swim through 2,300 applicants.
I know, that's crazy. And maybe I didn't have enough work to do, but the process would end up being, I would spend literally 2 to 3 seconds max on each one, and then just click either discard or keep, discard, 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 keep, discard, keep. Who knows what got discarded that could have been a great candidate? I don't know.
Oh, okay. On the flip side, though, I am a hiring manager at the moment, and I've had to look through a lot of CVs, and there are so many which are just, I mean, they didn't. It works both ways. Like these people didn't read the job description before submitting their CV, and they are just spamming. It's a numbers game from an applicant's point of view as well. So they're just spamming their CV everywhere. And I suppose that's the kind of solution, right? So there's these AIs which are doing different kinds of rejections because of stupid reasons, like not including floor buffing. But not everybody's using the same AI. So just submit it to a whole bunch of places, and hopefully you'll get through the one that is not checking for floor buffering or whatever it is, or buffing.
Well, they say that in the article, that this creates a vicious cycle where more people are being rejected. So people are applying for more jobs, which leads to more people being rejected, which means the software is more important. And in the end, They say 9 out of 10 executives surveyed for the report said they knew automated software was mistakenly filtering out viable candidates, but fixing it would be hard and expensive. So, you know,
and they still get the
and
candidates.
fixing it would be near impossible. I think we're talking about a system that is so saturated at this point. You know, when I was also hiring, I guess we're all hiring managers, or were or are current hiring managers, and I also got countless applicants that were completely in a different field. You know, a nurse applying for a technical position. It made no sense. And I realized, because I've been on that other end, is when you go on ZipRecruiter, when you go on Glassdoor, when you go on Indeed, LinkedIn, they have created a system for you to instantly apply. You have your profile parameters set, everything is good to go, and you click 300 times in 10 minutes. And you don't care, because you're fishing at this point. You are so desperate for a job, you do not care what the title is of it. Just send it out. Let someone else review it, move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Absolutely. So it is, the issue is multifaceted across the, I can't even call it an industry, but across the, I guess it is, this industry.
Across all industries, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah. And do you know that when you actually find a job or you find a candidate, it feels like, oh, I got lucky.
Right.
So you might as well just throw them all up in the air, whichever
just
one's
let them
left.
land.
And from the candidate side, it's got nothing to do with the job that you're going to have.
Yeah.
So you had to go through this whole split testing thing. What's that got to do with the job you're actually going to do? You have to work on your resume building skills and your interviewing skills and all these things.
Let's not get started
don't have
on the
anything to do with your job.
Interview process as well, where you have to do whiteboarding or take homework or prep or,
unpaid projects, whatever. Like
unpaid projects are, you know, it is a bane in the software industry. Like, it is just so ugly of a company to say, here you go, make me this app.
Can I tell you a story? Right. So there was, years and years ago, I was a huge fan of the Opera browser back in the day, and I actually paid for it. It was when I was a teenager, one of the few pieces of software that I paid for. And then it went free and supported by ads and stuff or whatever. But I applied for a job with them, and I got to the interview stage, and I was so excited. I was really like, oh my God, it's Opera. I've got a chance to work for this great company that I really respect. And then they sent me the interview process. And part of it was that if I got through the first couple of rounds, then there would be a homework task, which was estimated to be at around 40 hours worth of work. And I thought, there's two things. One, I'm not sure I really want to do 40 hours worth of work. But even if I was, I'm not sure I would want to work with a whole bunch of other people who were so enthusiastic about this company that they had all gone through it on the off chance that they might get the job. Like, so I was thinking,
it's
all right,
applicant abuse. It is applicant abuse. It's no joke. You are building your whole company on these free 40-hour take-home assessments.
40 hours, that's an entire week. Like, for a throwaway project that literally has no purpose other than just proving that you love them so much.
Pretty bad.
All right, sorry.
So we probably have time for one more good article. We've got John. So this is going to be a steel cage death match between you and me, representing VC money coming into the cybersecurity industry is you, and then I've got the FTC banning spy phone and other and on phone surveillance. Peter, who do you like better, Peter?
Oh my God!
Do we have a preference? What do you? I don't know. We could do the FTC thing next time. Sure. Let's do the cybersecurity. Yeah. We'll just stick with the rundown the way we said it. All right. Okay. Here you go, John.
You know, the cybersecurity industry, I keep reading. I'm part of all of these communities, Discord servers, subreddits, and I keep reading how hot the cybersecurity industry is from a high level. Article after article, you know, Forbes, New York Times, everyone and their mother is reporting on how hot the cybersecurity industry is. But I'm also part of all of these career growth communities for IT and technology professionals. And these kids, you know, they've been doing help desk, they're system administrators, junior analysts, whatever. And they say, I've been trying to break into the field for a year. I've sent, I don't know how many hundreds of applications, and I'm not getting a call back. I'm just being ghosted over and over and over again. I think that we're misrepresenting how hot the field is. The field is hot for people like Peter or myself. We have 5+ years of experience under our belt. We are vetted, and it is not hot for SOC analysts. It's not hot for, you know, tier 1 MSSP technicians. It is quite the opposite, it seems, from my point of view. But yeah, to cover the article, VCs keep throwing money at cybersecurity companies, startups, etc., divisions, because it is a burning, as it says, it is a burning industry that we do not have enough cybersecurity professionals for the amount of attacks that are occurring. Last time I read the number, I think it was for every cybersecurity job, for every 8 cybersecurity jobs, there's 1 professional, something like that. Yeah, so a lot to talk about here. What do you guys think?
I think there's definitely a distinction between, like, there are a lot of college grads, tech school grads, level 1 and level 2 guys with experience. My brother actually just finished his master's degree in computer science. And we had this conversation on Saturday morning. And he said, well, that's, yes, there are a lot of people, but the gap is, as you said, John, in the highly qualified professionals that these people are looking for. At the entry level, yeah, I'm sure it's cutthroat competition to get those jobs. But at the higher levels, definitely are looking for people with multiple years of experience, lots of solid education, people who really know what they're doing.
I think that catch-22 situation of you can't get hired for the position until you have the experience. You can't get the experience for the position and get hired. It's this kind of circular thing, and you have to get lucky in the end to sort of end up there, or just keep at it. I think it's perseverance. Just keep plugging away.
The level of people we're talking about for these high level cybersecurity positions are people who are not skimming Indeed looking for job ads. Probably they're people getting jobs because they're known in the industry, they've got connections, they're doing the networking. So I don't know if that's probably as much an issue, but certainly for the low and mid-tier jobs, certainly. And that's how we ended up in a case where college degrees and entry-level criteria. Because there's so much competition, you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
There's also an argument to be said for the idea that the people in these positions at the moment aren't doing a very good job. Because, you know,
oops.
Because, well, yeah, I'm shooting myself in the foot here, but it's kind of true. I saw a stat. Yeah.
Peter Lowe's old position.
Yeah. We're doing our best, but like I saw a stat on Twitter. There's some guy who's following the number of vulnerabilities and 0 days out there, and he compared, like, it's just overtaken 2021 and 2021. It's like climate change. You know, it's just getting worse and worse. It's never ending, and there's nothing we can do, and we're all going to get hacked one day. Mike's idea that we should just be assume that we're being tracked. Yeah. Just
let them in.
Change your password to password 1 everywhere. Disable 2FA. You don't need it. You're going to get hacked anyway.
Well, I took something a little bit different away from the article when I read it, though, because the title says that the VCs don't care. The cybersecurity industry is burning and VCs don't care. And I would say it's not that they don't care. It's just that it's a huge opportunity.
Correct.
There are so many more cloud services. So many more companies are digitizing everything and implementing new systems. It's creating so many more attack vectors than ever have existed before, which leads to more attacks, but more opportunities to try and protect against those attacks. So I don't know if I'd say that the people in those jobs now aren't doing a great job, so much as they're probably spread crazy thin trying to keep up with everything, because the attack surface is probably expanding exponentially every year.
Very true. Yes, that is actually how I would defend myself if someone said what I said. to me that it's impossible.
Just go on the record with it now.
Yeah.
I am absolutely critical. Nobody.
I mean, that's just taken as a given, right? I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, that's right. We are very critical, Peter. We're very important.
Yeah.
Well, my final conclusion was VCs don't care. Yeah, they're in it to make money. They don't care. Money wins coming and going. Like, they're going to make money on good news. They're going to make money on bad news, whatever.
That's
like,
right
how is
there.
that the focus of the article? Jeez.
Yeah, and the other thing about VCs is that they're not interested in ultimately not really the actual value of the product or the service. They're interested in what the stock price is going to be. So they just want the thing that's going to sell in the stock market for the most.
Well, and that's a problem with
but in cybersecurity specifically, Mike, you just said it. Basically, I think we are in a state right now, humanity, cybersecurity in general, we're in such a state that if I'm a consultant, I run a consultancy firm, the VCs are throwing money at me, just like this article states, and one of my clients gets ransomware, they get crypto locked, then I'm gonna make a bunch of money now, because my job is to recover from backups, is to have a BDR plan, and I'm now going to bill a bunch of hours to this client, put it just one scenario, to get them back in a functioning state. And they're gonna go and tell in their groups how good of a job I did once they got ransomwared. And no matter what, the consultant will make money. Obviously, if you're good. If you're a bad one, you should probably not be in the industry. But that's just one example of how these VCs look at the situation. Is they don't, to be frank, they don't give a shit. They just want to make as much money as possible.
I said it before that if we had perfect security, we'd all be out of the job. Like,
right.
We wouldn't have a reason.
Well, not Mike. Mike would be fine, but yeah.
Well, no,
I'm just here to cause trouble. I don't care.
Yeah. Mike,
I'm in marketing. I'll make money either way.
Marketing will never go. It's still a third oldest profession. There's porn, and then marketing, I guess. Ads and marketing.
And the former doesn't require marketing. It pretty much sells itself, right?
It does sell itself. Oh, well, if everything was like porn, Mike would be out of a job.
But
full circle.
That's true. I'm glad you brought it back to the tech side, though, because I was about to go off on late stage capitalism based on
that's good.
Peter's last comments, but you kind of reined it back in. But that trade-off you said is, I mean, that's the argument about MSPs and managed services versus break-fix services. Yeah. Break-fix guys make their money when things are broken and need to be fixed. Managed services guys make their money by preventing the problem so that they have to fix as little as possible. That's always the trade-off. But
in the event, there at least from, I've spent some years in the MSP space, and in the event that something does go wrong, the MSP, will, let's just say in their package, will have 40 hours available per device or something per month. I don't know how they will word it, but once you go over that, you're still going to bill this client. You will always make money, right? That's the end of the line kind of thing.
This is why I never became a sysadmin, because the best sysadmin is the one where nothing happens. They get no recognition because they never get noticed. Nothing breaks. It's all very quiet. But sucks.
And the flip side is, if something does break, they're the first one to get.
Yeah.
The
they
classic,
only receive
what are we
negative
paying
attention.
You for?
Yeah, exactly.
Poor system administrators.
We're ready to wrap it up. So Peter, your targeting sucks. Is that you or me? What did we decide on that?
That's me. I suggested this article, and it's something that
you are up. Take it away.
One of my drums that I keep banging is that all this stuff about hyper-targeted ads and all this data that's being sucked up by data vampires like Facebook, and they're tracking everything that we're doing. It's all pointless anyway, because the targeting is rubbish. And there's an article here by a guy, the CEO of Tailscale, which is a very cool product, but free license, please, gave a lot of different examples about how he has been targeted by ads or retargeted by ads, and they've just been shit. And the ones that are really effective are the ones, and he gives a whole bunch of different examples of like Amazon suggested items and that kind of thing, where they're actually really effective and they don't require any tracking at all. Anything that you don't actively provide. So like with Amazon, it's your order history, which they kind of have to have anyway. It's not some random third-party company that they bought data from that were about a purchase that you made 6 months ago. So yeah, that's basically it. I love it.
You make that argument, but I am in marketing groups and see guys all the time that are making triple-digit ROI on demographic targeting ads. And I think it really falls in a case where everybody thinks that they're not affected by marketing, but everybody is. It's the whole stated preferences versus revealed preferences. Everybody says they hate it. Everybody says it doesn't work on me. Yet guys are making piles and piles of cash doing it. So it works on somebody.
I think, okay, I think it's probably effective, but I think it could be more effective if it was just contextual. And the stuff that yeah, maybe it is just, what is it, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you think you know what's going on and you actually know way less than that. Like, it could just be me thinking it doesn't affect me and I'm actually under the spell of something or other.
It's probably a mix. Context-based ads are certainly effective, especially for purchasing decisions. But if you're doing brand building, you just want to be everywhere. And you
that's different. Like, why do you need tracking data for that? That's the whole point of this article. You don't need tracking data for all this.
Well, you'd still target off the demographic data. So is that fall in the same category of tracking data? Or I think so.
It's just a wider net, right? Yeah. Is what we're or the distinction, I guess, would be, is that one is individual, the other is an entire group of people, be it new mothers who just had babies or someone who's looking for a laptop. Individual tracking, as we spoke about last week, versus I think trend or demographic tracking, there is some nuance, some slight nuances there, or slight differences, I should say, that are very important. One tracks you, and I think the other tracks trends of people. And to me, sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, go. No, please tell me.
I was just saying that, as I've seen and as we spoke about last week, the individual tracking can be used so very badly in, just as an example, stalking, for example. That is just terrifying. That if I had the means, or I guess the money, I could find out where Peter goes and has lunch every day. Not from your phone, maybe from your credit card. If not your credit card, a different method. It is never ending, and that's terrifying. And we've seen that linking this data is super easy.
I am not going to argue against that in any way whatsoever. It is horrible and icky. The point of the article was that the targeting, the use of this data sucks, and that there are so many examples, and I'm sure you can think of one time yourself where you have the algorithm has misinterpreted what it thinks about you, and you've ended up seeing. YouTube is classic for that, where you watch one guinea pig video, or my wife watches one guinea pig video, and then suddenly all the suggestions are just guinea pig videos or makeup, whatever, or something that's vaguely related to that. Or you do the opposite and you say, I'm not interested in that, and then you'll never see that ever again, even though it was just you weren't
so
at that
black
time.
And white.
But he wasn't
so sort of simplistic that
he wasn't saying that it doesn't. He wasn't saying that the technique doesn't work. He was saying that the implementations all suck. Because he talks about how people love collecting data, but they're lousy at actually using it. He uses an example about, or not an example, but talks about how if you train a machine learning algorithm to do something, it's just going to do it the way you did it, not do it better.
Yeah.
So that I think that's a really interesting point. Like, yes, you could make a more effective machine learning algorithm, and that could be very effective. That could be very useful. But most people don't do that because they just don't know how. So it never was the case he was saying like, don't do this because it doesn't work. He was saying don't do it because you can't do it right, is what I took away.
That's very true. I think I got sidetracked in my that it sucks anyway. I'll take either.
Agreed.
I'll take either.
Right.
I think contextual
just as long as you don't do it, you don't care why.
Yes, exactly. 100%. Oh yeah, that's it.
Well, I thought there was a really interesting example, not to do with targeting necessarily, but he talks about the case of Netflix and the idea of satisficing, which is a combination of satisfaction and satisfying.
Yeah, I love
satisfying. And he talked about how their recommendation algorithms used to be really good because they couldn't let you watch 3 bad movies in a row because they were mailing it to you and you could only have so many bad experiences before you canceled. Now they just need you to watch something that'll keep you watching. So they set up what he says in the article is if they have a choice of showing you a movie that you have an 80% chance of liking and a 20% chance of hating versus a movie that you have a 99% chance of just not hating,
just okay.
They'll show you that every time because you might not love it, but you're not going to cancel your service over it. And so that's to their advantage. I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
And that's a classic example of growth hacking by Netflix or any other tech company that is terrifying, that all they care is just stay. Stay on the platform. Keep watching, keep reading, keep scrolling, swiping, whatever. I have a friend, he's a very strong Tinder user. And
I was going to bring up dating earlier.
Yeah.
We were talking about job hunting. It's just...
Right. Same exact thing. And he complains sometimes about, it kind of sucks, like it doesn't actually work. And I said, well, if you're Tinder, do you want your users to find their, the love of their life, or do you want them to keep swiping? Obviously, we want them to keep swiping. Obviously, we want them to buy super likes. We want them, to stay on the platform for as long as possible. And everything is mixed in here, from instant gratification to just, it's scary. It is what it is.
Do you know, actually, both of your points, right? One of the things that occurred to me was that this kind of guarantees that there's always going to be a place for the people who really care about this, for like artists who are doing something different and people who are innovative, genuinely disruptive, and actually making a difference. People who care enough about the product or service or thing that they're creating to make it that they care about the value of it rather than the growth of it. And I think the fact that things like Netflix get dumbed down and sort of almost any service that wants to keep growing, it eventually gets dumbed down. I think because by definition, you can't keep growing without dumbing it down. Then that means that there's always going to be a little niche for people who are doing something they really truly believe in.
That's probably true, but it's a little niche. It's not likely a big opportunity because you just get crushed by Netflix, who's willing to do anything for the dollar.
Right. I was going to say, isn't this, so I hate, Mike is going to love this, but isn't this a classic late stage capitalism end game result? And I'll explain what I mean is, historically, we've had market resets, hard market resets that cause medium to large companies to go out of business, creating a vacuum for smaller companies to take their place. And it's kind of a never-ending cycle of this. And we've reached a point.
Everybody gets bored with it eventually, right?
Well, do they? That's the question: is do they? Because, like you said, it's satisfying pacifist, like or being just
satisficing.
Yeah, that's
sufficed and satisfied.
Right. And it's like you're content, you're compromising with these services. But at the end of the day, what are you going to
do? So now we've got Apple TV, Disney, Hulu, all these other services, but it's the same thing there.
It's exactly the same thing.
Is it
which
really
is kind of funny because it went into, I forget what it's called. It's called choice paralysis, I think, where you have simply too much. And this wasn't a thing when we all grew up. We would turn the TV on, or in Peter's case, we'd turn the telly on, and We turn the TV on, and this is what was on. You don't have a say. The only say you have is you can change the channel. But even if you change the channel, it's still you don't have a choice. It's an illusion of choice.
We had 4 channels when I was growing up.
Wow. We had, I think, 5. I think we paid for channel 5 when I was growing up in Sweden.
When Channel 5 launched in the UK, I remember this was a massive deal. And now it's just the armpit of the national broadcasting. Like, it's terrible.
And you know, the point I was making is we've made almost a full circle of we've reached choice paralysis with Netflix. And now instead of just having Netflix, we get to flicker through our applications on our smartphone, smart TV, and say, I don't want Netflix. I'm going to go to Disney Plus. I don't want Disney Plus. I'm going to go to Hulu. I'm going to jump from service provider to service provider until I find a show that I want to watch. And cable cutting became almost a moot point because now we have 10 services.
I was a cable cutter 15 years ago. Right. And for the first probably 12 years, Hulu and Netflix were awesome. Now it's worse than having cable because not only are there so many choices, they're no longer bundled. So you have to pay individually for every single one of them. And even worse than what you said, I could be watching something on Netflix, have YouTube open on my laptop, and be checking what's available on Apple Plus on my phone all at the same time. What am I even watching?
While asking Alexa to recommend you a show from Amazon TV.
And still complaining that there's nothing to watch.
Exactly right.
Yeah. But that's where you turn, at that point, you turn back to the creators, the people who are doing something different. You start to go out and look for those people. That's why I think that we're kind of guaranteeing that these people are always going to survive somehow.
I hope so.
You are such an optimist.
Yeah, that is very optimistic because I think we've reached a point, and I know we've gone on quite the tangent here, but I think we've reached a point where we won't have another market reset. And even if we do, these companies are going to survive and nothing is going to replace them anymore. That's my prediction.
For the continuation of this conversation, everybody should jump over to our political podcast about late-stage capitalism.
We can talk about socialism versus democracy. Yeah.
I guess we have to wrap it up.
That's
Mike's way of saying.
We cut, I think, 2 articles, and we're still at like an hour and a quarter here, hour and 10 minutes. So we failed to keep it to our goal of coming in at an hour. But it was fun. Good conversation, as always.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what happens when we get together. We just want to chat away.
Yeah.
Right.
Good topic. All right. Anything to plug? Anyone? Who wants the last word?
Bon voyage.
Everybody just stares at the camera. All right. Well, bye.